Where do you want to start? In the beginning, pretty much right out of the gate, I knew that my career was going to revolve around cameras. There was just something about it. It was the fact that you could kind of craft and curate your own perspective of the sport was definitely something that spoke to me. And in the beginning, I would say it was just my whole creative outlook was based on performance. Yeah, cameras, riding bikes real fast, figuring out angles, you know. And then waltzing down the street came this little film called Life Cycles. Working on that project was my first proper introduction to filmmaking. That's where I learned how to execute a narrative, and I also learned the power of an idea. I mean, I watched Ryan and Derek break themselves bringing this thing to life and sweating over the small details to make sure it was perfect as it could possibly be. And for like a young, impressionable kid, that was totally and completely inspiring. It was mind-blowing for me. I mean, I was totally hooked. And I basically made a conscious effort to start developing my own creative voice and perspective. Now, I knew this wasn't going to happen overnight, so I wanted to start basically building this now, so when it came time to execute down the road, I was going to be like completely and totally ready. And yeah, I mean, in the meantime, I was still doing things like, Red Bull Rampage. Now, once you're on the receiving end of a few of those, you really start asking yourself, what the hell am I doing? Yeah. I mean, especially for myself, that was not my path. There was never going to be. I had this fire inside of me that just was like, bigger stories, bigger terrain, a different kind of exposure. And I needed to go execute on that. It just came time. So I turned the page, had a little word with Indiana Jones, and well, basically just, disappeared in the mountains for a good 2-3 years. Over those years, I had the opportunity to travel all over the world, and I had the chance to pull off some really challenging productions in difficult places. And I just kind of felt like my toolbox was starting to build to a point where I just needed to do something about it. Like my storytelling skills were getting better. I was starting to get a handle on directing and producing. It just felt like everything was building to something. The pieces were all coming together. I just didn't quite have the story or the project yet. And as this was happening, I was brought Dreamride, and I got brought in right on the ground level, and I took that thing and friggin' ran with it. Dreamride was one of those projects that it took everything I had learned up until that point and then some just to pull it off. And by the time we had finished number 3, we were all pretty fried. I was probably the closest I've ever been to a mental breakdown, you know, ever in my life. It was crazy. I was wearing too many hats, like way too many hats, and I was just all in. It's the only way I know how to go. And between the writing, the directing, the producing, the editing, the location scouting, hiring the crew, booking hotels, flights, this, that, managing all aspects of it, and then it was just one of these things that just broke me. But at the end of the day, now that the dust is settled, I can look back on it and see it as this opportunity that gave my friends and I some of the wildest experiences of our lives. And I truly mean that. I mean, sure, we were totally toast at the end of it, but yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And after number 3, well, I just got to go ride my bike for a bit.
Riding bikes, goddamn best. Love it. Next shot, let's go.
Now, I think there's a natural evolution to everything. And I look at the course of my career, and although none of it's been straight, it's been all over the friggin' map and twists and turns and take me down so many different roads, but ultimately I've gone down those roads because I'm interested in the thing I'm doing. And when you're doing that, I feel like you're kind of always heading in the right direction. It may not always work out, but for the most part, you learn something from it and you move on. And that kind of like brings me to where I'm at in my career now. Like, I've been around cameras and filming for like so many years, for the past almost 2 decades. And yeah, and I think the natural next step for me was to go into fabricating these stories from taking them from a concept and like scripting them out, where you have cast, characters, wardrobe, crews, and then you're also building sets and stuff like that. You're fully, completely controlling the narrative and every aspect of it. And yeah, I just see a new challenge in trying to craft these narratives that speak to people on an emotional level. I think the thing that inspired me to take on these like new challenges and these new directives is starting a family and everything getting boiled down to the essence of joy and what that really means, and trying to take that and put it in front of the screen and make it genuine and real. So yeah, it's been a pretty wild ride so far, especially looking at where I started to where I am now. Yeah, creative evolution, eh? It's a hell of a thing.